Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome to another edition of Geek Therapy Radio. I am your host, Johnny Hamburger, the hostess with the mostess. Wait, am I a hostess? Yes, I do have a side gig in which I'm an Applebee's hostess. Don't judge me. Johnny Hamburger, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Go join up. Go like the page. Let's discuss. Let's be friends. Let's make it Facebook official. I'm pretty excited for this week's show. I'm all jazzed up about something, and I'm going to get right into it. I think one of the true marks of a geek is these. We read these tech stories, or a new device comes out, something like that, and it gets us riled up, and maybe not all riled up because we're so excited for this new product to come out or anything like that, or we think the new device is so awesome and has these cutting edge features that make us geek out. In this particular case, my geek bone has been pinged like a funny bone in your elbow with Microsoft's new Surface lineup. The whole product line of Microsoft's Surface, the Surface Pro tablet, the Surface Pro, the Surface laptop, and the Surface Studio, they're all like on the surface, no pun intended, they all look amazing, and they are pretty amazing. But Microsoft, and this is what I'm geeking out about, Microsoft has just made some bafflingly stupid decisions with these. It's like they came so close to getting it perfect, just to nailing it on the head, coming so close to getting these products perfect that I had my eye on the new Surface Pro, the tablet, because I was like, this might make me actually go out and get one, because Microsoft has hit its stride in many ways, but they've completely whiffed on a couple things that makes the device worthless to me, and probably to, well, we'll see, maybe to a lot of people. It's just a lot of tech geeks aren't going to buy it for the following reasons. And I'm going to go through each device in the Surface line and tell you why they're stupid. So the new Surface Studio, which is geared towards audio-visual and photo production studios, it's really a neat device, and it's almost perfect in every way, shape, or form. It is a beautiful, beautiful machine. It costs like $3,000 and over $3,000, which that's, they're going right for Apple's throat, with Apple's market share in the production studio market, basically, which is fine. Except NVIDIA, for the past several months, has had 10 series graphics on the market. For instance, the 1060, the 1070, the 1080 Ti graphics cards available to all manufacturers. Yet with the Microsoft Studio, Surface Studio, Microsoft has chosen to use the previous generation of graphics, the 900 series cards. So in the Surface Studio that you're paying top dollar for, you're getting old technology graphics. It makes no sense. I think in the base model Surface Studio, it comes with NVIDIA GTX 960M graphics, which the NVIDIA 10 series, the 1000 series cards have done away with the mobile version of the chip entirely, because the new die is so small and so efficient, they don't need a mobile version of it. And what I mean by mobile version of it is the kind that goes in laptops and smaller builds, more cramped builds. They used to have an M for a mobile version of the chip that puts out less heat and is less powerful. So the Microsoft Surface Studio uses these old 900 series graphics, the mobile version of it, which is, they missed the mark on that. It's a perfect device. Other manufacturers have gotten on this bandwagon of making products quote unquote sexy, following Apple's lead in making it a product that is actually aesthetically nice to look at and pleasing and of such a solid build quality. Yet Microsoft decides, in all its wisdom, its baffling wisdom, to put old generation graphics in a $3,000 machine. What were they thinking? So let's go with the next product down the line that they've just introduced, and that is the Surface laptop, which is a beautiful device. Why Microsoft had to make a Surface laptop when other laptops exist, who knows? But so Surface laptop, good specs, decent specs. Here's what I'm getting at with the laptop. It is so massively overpriced for what you get. So absurdly overpriced for what you get. And it's marketed towards students. So the base model, or one of the cheapest Microsoft Surface laptops you get, it's like $1,000. I think it starts at $1,000. Maybe it starts at around $1,000. And that's for 4 gigabytes of RAM. 4. In 2017, 4 gigabytes of RAM is not enough. It is not enough to warrant a starting price of around $1,000 and be marketed towards students, broke college students. College students are pretty tech savvy, and they know that 4 gigabytes of RAM is not enough to cut it beyond basic office utilities. So if you're an engineering student and you're doing CAD modeling or any 3D modeling like that, this is not for you. You cannot run your 3D software on this $1,000 device. So in anything upgraded from there up to 8 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes, whatever, is just costs an arm and a leg. So you're getting around $1,500 for a product that's marketed towards students. It doesn't make any sense. And it goes even further than that. It's 2017. Do you think there's Thunderbolt 3 on this device? On this, conceivably $1,500 device? No. There's no Thunderbolt 3, and there is not even USB Type-C on it. What were they thinking? It makes no sense whatsoever for the price you're paying for it. The device looks great, and on paper, the specs can be pretty good, but it costs way too much, and it does not even have USB Type-C, let alone Thunderbolt. Microsoft whiffed the Surface laptop completely. Okay, now let's go to the Surface Pro, their tablet hybrid thing that they've had for a few generations prior. It's what introduced the whole Surface concept to consumers. Okay, you think the new Surface Pro would have Thunderbolt? No, it does not. You'd think it would have USB Type-C? No, it does not. It has USB 3.0 Type A, which is just, for those who may not be so up to speed, it's just an old looking USB port. It's the full size USB port, which is nice. It's more than a MacBook has, MacBook Air at least, but no USB Type-C. USB Type-C is the standard in 2017. I would argue that Thunderbolt 3 should be the standard in 2017, especially for products that start out around $1,000. I believe the Surface Pro tablet starts out around $800 or $700, which would be reasonable if it had Thunderbolt 3. It doesn't make any sense why Microsoft chose to handicap each of their new Surface products. The other stupid thing about the Surface laptop that I've just went over ad nauseum is the software. Windows, it comes out of the box with Windows 10 S. And for the first year, you can choose to upgrade to just full Windows 10 if you so desire. It's free. I think it's free. It might be $10. It's really cheap. The point is, it comes out of the box with Windows 10 S on a $1,000 device. Let me tell you why that's stupid. Windows 10 S it only allows you to run apps from Microsoft's App Store. From the Microsoft Store. That means on a $1,000 device, you cannot run an executable. You cannot run Adobe Photoshop. You cannot run Premiere. You cannot run AutoCAD. You cannot run any desktop-based Windows full software on it, on a $1,000 device out of the box. You need to upgrade it to full Windows 10. These things have i7s in them. These things are built and made to run some pretty intense applications in their highest tier. The highest tier version of it, the $1,500 whatever version of it. Yet, out of the box, it comes with a stripped down version of Windows that only allows you to run these lightweight little tiny apps from the store. What is Microsoft thinking? Here's yet another problem, and this is from actual experience. I have a Microsoft Surface 2. 2 or 3, I forget what it is. And it is a awesome device. I like it a lot. It's really, really cool. The detachable keyboard and all that stuff, it's a really cool device. I like it a lot. So here's the rub. Here's what's baffling about it. Despite the fact that I like it so much, I never use it versus the laptop I carry around in my backpack at all times. It's got this it's such a strange phenomenon. I got it, I was super excited about it, and I used it for a few days. And every once in a while, I dust it off and wait for it to do all the updates because I seriously use it once every few months. It's such a cool device. It's so solidly built. It's nice and fast, has really good specs. But I never use it. It's so cool, but I never, ever use it. I guess it's like somebody buying a Ferrari and then just keeping it in their garage. And the cost is not comparable, obviously. But it's really cool, looks really nice, has really good specs, very nice under the hood, but you still use your minivan every day. That's the problem that Microsoft Surface suffers for me. Anyways, that's a long segment. I had a lot to rant about that. We'll be back with more Geek Therapy. We'll have some more interesting topics coming up. I'm Johnny Hemberger, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Go hit it up. Let's become Facebook official, and we'll be back in a few minutes. That's right. I'll shut up now. Star Wars came out this weekend, 40 years ago in 1977. Some would argue, what is the first movie called? Is it Star Wars, or is it A New Hope, or is it Star Wars A New Hope? I am not a big enough Star Wars nerd myself to have my fur bristled at whatever you want to call the first Star Wars. But what boggles my mind initially on realizing that Star Wars is 40 years old this weekend, is that on its first run in 1977, Star Wars earned $220 million. Just the first movie on its first run. If a movie came out right now in 2017 and earned $220 million, it would be a success, to say the least. It would be a hit. It would be a blockbuster, depending how much they spent on making the movie. Of course. If Napoleon Dynamite earned $220 million, it's on its first run, that would be amazing. What did Napoleon Dynamite earn? My point is, Napoleon Dynamite was a very, very, very low budget movie, and if a low budget movie earned $220 million, you just do the math. Lots of rich people. Well, a few rich people involved in that movie. Anyways, $220 million in 1977, that would be like a movie coming out now in 2017 and earning on its first run, let's say, I don't know, a new Will Smith movie comes out. That would be the equivalent of that movie earning almost $900 million. That is insane. That is insane. Oh, geez. But yeah, so Star Wars, needless to say, was a smash hit. And I guess you could say a story is a smash hit when it starts its own religion. And Star Wars has certainly, as far as the U.S. government is concerned, started its own religion. Just kind of like how Star Trek started its own official language. You can actually major in Klingon. You can go to college. You can go into student loan debt to get your degree in Klingon. But back to Star Wars. Star Wars single-handedly revolutionized special effects in movies. And what is even more amazing is that 1977 is well before CGI as we know it today, where basically, you actually do make movies today entirely on a computer. No actors involved other than voice actors. And even that might be coming to an end once AI gets good enough to reproduce human speech on a believable level, naturally. So yeah, Star Wars revolutionized the special effects industry in movies single-handedly. Just brought it decades farther, just in that one single movie. And all they were using were handcrafted models. I say all they were using like it wasn't significant. Like they just went into Hobby Lobby and bought a model airplane kit and made, painted it differently, made a whole movie around a cheap little model airplane kit. No. These models of, say the Millennium Falcon, X-Wings, the Death Star, these models cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, at least. And God knows what they're worth today. And if they were to do something like that today using models, obviously, it goes without saying, it would be more expensive than using CGI. Which is why we use CGI now, for better or for worse. In some instances better, in some instances worse. But I'll let you decide on that. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I will say about CGI, 1993 wasn't, well, I guess it was significantly after 1977, but 1993 when Jurassic Park came out, which is one of my all-time favorite movies ever, besides Back to the Future, I would say Jurassic Park is my number 2, for sure. But anyways, Jurassic Park in 1993, you watch Jurassic Park now, even in high definition re-release on Blu-ray, the special effects in Jurassic Park from 1993 still holds up. Still holds up really well. You'd think that watching CGI from 1993 would just take you out of it. Oh, look at that. Those dinosaurs look so crappy. No, it looks great. And Jurassic Park, you can find this all over YouTube. The screen tests Spielberg was deciding whether he was going to use CGI or the tried and true claymation. He actually had Jim Henson's people making the dinosaurs, and they were doing screen tests with the T-Rex and raptors and whatnot using claymation, because CGI was still it had to look just right. It had to look just right, and I'm really glad, of course, that they went with CGI, because the claymation stuff didn't look that great. You know, a film moves at 24 frames a second, and still claymation, it just looks, you just couldn't get it to look natural the way they could get the CGI to look. But CGI was still sort of relatively in its infancy, and when you're trying to make a movie look just right, when you're trying to make the dinosaurs look just right, Spielberg went with CGI. So Star Wars, mostly by hand, mostly human beings painting little models, making little models out of wood and plastic and whatnot, and it looks great. Star Wars still looks good today. It looks good. You know, you can tell that it's dated, certainly, but it's still a great movie to watch, and it's still a great series. The original movies, I don't know where you want to define. I will say the original movies were the first three. 4, 5, and 6? Episode 4, 5, and 6? Those are the originals. I know the new ones start out at 1, 2, and 3, but the original Star Wars, it's still fun. You can plop down a kid 5 years old, 7 years old, and he's still going to enjoy it thoroughly. It still holds up wonderfully over time. So here's a couple interesting facts about Star Wars, or facts surrounding the Star Wars franchise. John Williams, the Oscar-winning composer who did the music for Star Wars, almost all of them, he didn't do the Clone Wars or Rogue One, but he said in an interview that he has never actually sat all the way through any of the Star Wars movies, which means he made the scores for these movies just watching a few scenes, you know, getting the feeling for the scene and composing from the feelings he got from watching a few scenes and composing to those scenes. But he's never actually grabbed a bag of popcorn and sat down in his lazy boy and watched a single one of the Star Wars movies all the way through start to finish. That's funny to me. That made me actually laugh. Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca, did all of his lines in English, and then it was later overdubbed into Wookiee, which just begs the question. I don't know. Maybe some of you Star Wars geeks do know. What were the lines in English? What were Chewbacca's lines in English? Next segment is going to be me impersonating Chewbacca. 10 minutes. 10 minutes of... You ready for that? Segment 3 is going to be just that. All right, one more fact before we get out of this segment. So, another character who obviously couldn't speak English was R2-D2. And originally, he had lines in English too before they decided to do the beeps and boops. There was a line, for instance, "The structure has exceeded the normal stress quotient by 0.4, although there appears to be no immediate danger." I made that sound like Data from Star Trek because I don't know what R2-D2 would sound like. He probably would have a British accent, a Cockney accent, or whatever it's called. I don't know. So it makes you think, why did C-3PO, why did they make him, he was the robot who spoke English. The gold robot looks like a person, we have to make him speak English, but Chewbacca kind of looks too much like a dog, so he has to... Alright, more Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm done chewing Chewbacca. I am eating Chewbacca beef jerky. No, I am done doing Chewbacca's voice. For now, I might come back with it. Stick around, more Geek Therapy Radio to come. Take this break to get on your celery phone and like Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. We'll be right back.
Keep it hood.
Last segment, we talked about Star Wars torning. Why can't I talk? Radio is hard. I gotta sit here in this comfy chair and flap my lips. I need a break. In this segment, we're gonna talk about building a computer. Specifically, building a budget gaming PC. That is a PC capable of playing any and all modern games at reasonable quality. And by default, if you are building, there's that talking thing again. There's that talking thing. By default, if you are building a gaming PC, you are building a PC that is powerful, more than powerful enough to do anything else. Video edit, photo edit, audio edit, whatever you want to do, a gaming PC is going to pack the punch to be able to chew through those productivity tasks, those more intense productivity tasks, 3D modeling productivity. So specifically, we're going to talk about building a budget-minded gaming PC. And I'll just get right to the brass tacks. You're going to want, when you start building a PC, you got to think about first the processor. What processor? And the best current budget processor right now, the best bang for your buck by far, is the Intel G4560. It costs $70. And it's basically what it is a Core i3 killer. It is dual core, hyper-threaded. And again, it costs $70. And I've mentioned in previous Geek Therapies, and Geek Therapies before AMD dropped their new CPU line, I said, this is great for consumers because it's going to force Intel, who's been basically the cream of the crop for the past 10 years, it's going to force Intel to start offering more budget-friendly options. In the Intel Pentium G4560, it just nails it. Just nails that bang for the buck option. So we're going to start with an Intel G4560. Dual core hyper-threaded. $70. Next, for a gaming PC, you're going to want to think about the graphics card. And I'll just say, for sake of keeping this segment timely, do not pair a $700 graphics card with a $70 CPU. The term bottleneck comes to mind. In such that the CPU will bottleneck that super powerful GPU, graphics processing unit, graphics card, video card. So do not pair, let's say, a GTX 1080 Ti, which costs a little under $800. Don't pair that with a $70 CPU. It makes no sense. Keep the budget for the GPU around $150. And if you're keeping it around $150, I recommend the NVIDIA GTX 1050 Ti or its AMD equivalent. Basically, just keep your search for graphics card and keep them in between the $100 and $150 mark for either the green team NVIDIA or the red team AMD, and you'll be all set. But I personally would recommend the 1050 Ti. The CPU is not going to bottleneck the 1050 Ti, and the 1050 Ti is not going to bottleneck the G4560 CPU. It's a good fit. So now you're in it for, if you spent $150 on the GPU and $70 on the CPU, you're currently in it for about $220, which is reasonable when you're building a PC. Next, what you're going to want to think about is RAM, the random access memory, the RAM sticks. And I will say, just for argument's sake, For a dedicated PC or a dedicated gaming PC, 8 gigabytes is good. 16 gigabytes is preferred, but 8 gigabytes is good. And you can get 8 gigabytes of RAM. You can probably do for around $50, $50 or $60, 8 gigs. That'll get you there. The only reason why I say 16 gigs is preferred is there's one game that comes to mind specifically, and it's come out a couple years ago. But Just Cause 3, the game is called Just Cause 3. It is awesome. I like that game a lot. But it eats your RAM. For some reason, this game just chews through your RAM. And it will max out 8 gigabytes of RAM. So you're going to want a little bit of headroom for that game specifically. But in general, 8 gigabytes for a gaming PC in 2017, that's good. The next thing is the motherboard. And remember, this CPU, the G4560, you're not going to overclock it. You're not going to do anything special to the CPU. So there is no sense in buying a motherboard on a budget gaming PC build. There's no sense in buying a motherboard, an expensive one that's built for overclocking, unless you plan to upgrade the CPU later, which you might. If you plan to have an upgrade path, yes, get a motherboard that is capable of overclocking an unlocked CPU. But if it's just a budget build, basically go for, I would argue, the cheapest motherboard you can get from a respectable company. Like the cheapest motherboard you can get, socket 1151. The cheapest motherboard you can get for socket 1151 from MSI or Gigabyte or Asus or Asus. I call it Asus because that's how it's spelled. So yeah, you're looking around $50, maybe a little less, for a basic motherboard that you cannot overclock with. So that takes care of the motherboard. Next, you're going to be looking at the power supply. Just get a power supply, I would say around 400 watts from a respectable company. Corsair. Who else makes them? Corsair, EVGA, Thermaltake. Basically spend around $50 or under on a power supply from one of those reputable companies, and you'll be all set. And the reason why I say 400 as opposed to like 750 or whatever is because the components in a budget gaming PC build are not going to chew up 700 watts. It's all about efficiency for your electricity bill and overhead and whatnot. Just keep it efficient. Keep it around 400 watts, and you'll be golden. And you'll still have headroom. The next item on the list will be storage. Where are you going to store the operating system in your games? Get 2 different drives. Get a solid state drive. They are cheap now. Get a solid state drive for your operating system and a few of the games you're going to install. A 120 gigabyte solid state drive these days costs about $50. Next, you'll want a traditional disk drive, a disk storage drive for bulk storage. You can get a 1 terabyte hard disk drive for also $40 now. So you got your solid state drive, and then you want your bulk storage drive for the rest of your game library. 1 terabyte is about $40 now. You're golden. Next item would be your case, the computer case, the thing that all the components go inside. And again, under $50, you can spend around $30, maybe less. Any case will do. You can put all your stuff in a shoebox. That'll work. Might be a fire hazard. Take some finagling. But anyways, a computer case, under $50, even around $30, sometimes around $20. That's all you need. And now I'm going to lump peripherals into the same sort of discussion. Peripherals being keyboards and mice and monitors and things like that. You probably have that stuff laying around. At this point in 2017, computers are pretty popular, and you probably have stuff laying around. I would lump power supplies and cases and hard drives and RAM and all sorts of other components into this category. You might have a computer right now with an 1150 socket. That's the socket that with an 1151 socket. You might have one. You might have already purchased a PC, and all you need to do to convert it to a gaming PC is put a graphics card in it. Like we discussed, $100 graphics card in it, and now you've got a gaming PC. So I'm going to lump peripherals into that category. Try to recycle as many parts from old systems as you can use. As long as you have a modern CPU and a modern graphics card, you are good to go for gaming. Now, as far as if you're building a PC from scratch, you're telling yourself right now, you're yelling at your speakers, nobody ever talks about how much an operating system costs. You're going to have to buy Windows. That's true. If you're building from scratch, you might have to buy Windows, which cost about $100 for Windows 10 or Windows 8. God knows why you go back to Windows 8, because it would just ask you to upgrade to Windows 10. You can get Windows 7. Wherever you want to do, yes, an operating system's going to cost $100. Except if you recycle parts, you might have a hard drive that already has Windows on it. And all you'd have to do at that point is clone that hard drive onto your solid state drive, at least the partition with Windows on it. And you don't have to pay for Windows. Now you've got the operating system. So, anyways, there's all sorts of ways you can save money. Find an old computer, put a graphics card in it. Now you've got a gaming PC, basically. I won't suggest probably now in 2017 that you go find an old socket, a Core 2 Duo or Core 2 Quad, and turning it into a gaming PC. You can, but your bottleneck's going to be that CPU. Anyways, that's it for this segment. There's all sorts of things you can do to build a gaming PC on a budget. Like I said, recycle and reuse different parts from different computers, different builds. You can make yourself a budget gaming PC and potentially save hundreds of dollars. But that's it for segment 3. We're coming back with segment 4. It's going to be a short one because I've chewed up so much time already with Geek Therapy. There's so much geek stuff happening this week. So much geeky things in my brain that I'm going to have to make segment 4 a little bit shorter. So, again, use this time during the break to get on your celery phone, your smartphone, and like Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. I'll be there. I'll love you. And I'll send you a little heart emoji. Let's make it Facebook official. We'll be right back with segment 4 of Geek Therapy Radio. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I am still your mental curator for the evening, Johnny Hemberger. Do the Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram, Geek Therapy KPRC on Twitter, and the email geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. So in this I can't talk. Fourth segment, there's an interesting story out of the Comicon in Phoenix. A man was caught and apprehended by authorities after a woman noticed him looking suspicious. The man had many guns on him and many knives and much ammo, and he said he intended to harm police officers or harm people. He said he said his intention was to harm law enforcement at the Comicon in Phoenix. I'm glad they did. I'm glad they apprehended that guy. I'm glad, of course, nothing happened. And hopefully this guy will go to prison for a long time and get the mental help that he needs. You have to be mentally ill to want to harm people, period. You can call it religion. You can call it being bullied too much. You can call it whatever you want, but it's mental illness. Mentally stable people do not gun down innocent people or blow up innocent people. You can have a mentally stable person of religion. You can have a mentally stable person in any aspect of society. They don't hurt people. Anyway, so they found that they caught this man before he did any damage. And what's interesting to me, the story, how do I put this? What is interesting to me is that I don't know if you've ever been to a Comicon. Hopefully, I've got enough of a geek audience now that they've been to these comic book conventions. It's very hard to tell. There's lots of weapons in comic books, and one of the type of people who come in cosplay, which means they're in costume of their favorite comic book characters or anime characters or video game characters, what have you. They are loaded to the gills with replica weapons, and it's actually a very highly scrutinized aspect of security to scan these weapons and make sure they aren't real or functional. So, for instance, if somebody's walking into a Comic-Con carrying a big giant sword, they're making sure the sword is made out of foam. I don't think they even allow it to be made out of wood now. Do they allow wooden swords in there at this point? I think wooden swords can do too much damage. Anyways, they're making sure they're not real swords, and they're making sure the guns aren't real guns. And sometimes, to me, it's very hard to spot a real weapon among fake weapons. So kudos to the woman who first noticed something suspicious and actually said something about it, because that's where it actually starts. You notice somebody doing something fishy, you tell the appropriate authorities about it. Second, they're just, from now on, I wouldn't be surprised if they just ban fantasy weapons completely at these Comic-Cons. Lord knows at the Phoenix Comic-Con and any other Comic-Con this year, the security is going to be much heightened regarding fake replica weapons. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if going forward, they just banned replica weapons altogether, which would suck, let me just tell you. Half of a costume, half of a comic book costume, half of an anime costume, half of a video game costume is weapons. And there is as much character and design going into those weapons as going into the rest of the outfit. So now you're going to have this character who looks severely out of place if they're not holding their weapon. But the Comicon bunch, Comicon geeks, are a hardy bunch, and they will figure out how to make it awesome, figure out how to make it cool, and they will rock it. If they can't bring weapons, they'll figure out a way just to rock the socks off the costume. That's going to be it for Geek Therapy this week. I am Johnny Hamburger. I was your mental curator, and I'll be your mental curator next week as well for more Geek Therapy. Get on your cell phones, Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Come friend me. Let's make it Facebook official. I love you all. You're all capable of good things. Don't hurt anybody. Don't hurt yourself. You are worthy. You are worthy of love. I love you. Take care this week. I'm Johnny Hamburger. Come back next week. More Geek Therapy Radio. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Peace out.